I used to believe that that the only way to be successful is to work really, really hard. You gotta grind. It's not that I don't think that that's true. I just like to question everything right now.
He sold his company to Coca-Cola. Yeah, that company. Then he did something almost nobody ever does. He bought it back. So today's guest turned coconut water into an $8 billion global category and is now reshaping how investors think about health, about wellness, and about purpose. Welcome back to The Root of All Success. I am your host, the real Jason Duncan. This is episode number 337. My guest is Mark Rampolla. He's an entrepreneur. He's an investor. He's the founder of ZICO Coconut Water. And he didn't just build a beverage brand, which is hard enough as it is. He helped create an entire category, which is exponentially harder than just building one brand in some beverage category. So he created a whole category. Now, as I said earlier, after selling ZICO to Coca-Cola in 2013, he co-founded a company called Power Plant Partners, and he played a key role in the rise of something called Beyond Meat. And then in 2020, he made a move that shocked the industry. He bought ZICO back. And so today, through Ground Force Capital, he manages over $500 million in assets that are focused on health, wellness, and sustainability. So, Mark, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jason. It's an honor to be here. I've enjoyed the show myself.
Well, that's nice of you to say. So let's talk about the big news here. You sold ZICO to Coca-Cola, and then years later you buy it back.
Yeah.
So what's going through your mind when you decided to repurchase a brand that you'd already let go?
Well, look, first I'll tell you, when I sold it, I was done. I thought it had been a 9-year journey, quite a grind, as most entrepreneurs know. And I got to a place where I felt like, look, the brand was best in Coca-Cola's hand. I got 2 daughters, and ZICO felt like my son, rambunctious, high potential. I got him into the Harvard of the beverage industry, Coca-Cola. My work's done, right? And I thought, well, I'm going to go on and live my life in other ways. And so I became an active investor, did start this firm. Fast forward 7 years, I had no interest in taking ZICO over again. But by that point, I thought I hadn't. But at that point, Coca-Cola made the announcement that they were selling off or shutting down 200 brands globally during COVID. A lot of big strategics went inward and focused on their core. And so ZICO sort of went out with the trash, right? And so anything under $1 billion was on the chopping block. So now running this investment firm, Ground Force Capital, I talked to my partner. We looked at it as a rational investment opportunity and said, look, do we see something Coca-Cola doesn't see, right? Do we see a potential bigger than they saw? And we did.
Wow. Now, before ZICO, you were in the Peace Corps in Costa Rica. So how did that experience plant the seeds for what you would eventually build?
Yeah, wow, great question. So yeah, I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Central America, and so had never been out of the country before that. And I got to tell you, the first time I tasted coconut water, I thought it was odd. It's got a little bit milky, it didn't taste that great. But I grew to love it and drank it all the time. And it was written into the Peace Corps manual. If you're out of range of medical care and can't get an IV, drink a coconut, drink the water out of a coconut. So I kind of knew about it, but it wouldn't be until 10 years later, I was back in Latin America after living across the state from you in Memphis, Tennessee, actually for a few years.
Oh, yeah.
That I wound up living and working in Latin America again, had a corporate career, and decided I didn't want to be a corporate guy. I didn't want to kind of lead my life in that path, and I wanted to build my own journey. I wanted to have my own sort of path to success and hopefully freedom. And so that gave me the itch to become an entrepreneur. And when I was thinking back on looking at ideas and brainstorming ideas, I was fascinated with health and wellness. I'd been an athlete my entire life, and I stopped drinking, Gatorade and the like forever ago. And meanwhile, I was drinking coconut water all the time. And so the big idea was, wait a second, there's got to be other consumers out there that are looking for a healthier alternative. And here's coconut water, known and loved by billions of people around the world, the tropical world, for its replenishing properties. Maybe there's a market in the U.S. for this.
You've talked a lot about purpose driven entrepreneurship all throughout your career. Was that always clear to you, or did it take time to connect the dots between mission and business?
Look, it did take some time. What I would say is my entire life, I have been searching for purpose. And some of that was I was raised, Catholic, and my parents sort of promoted for all of us the value of finding your purpose in life. And that didn't have to be a religious or spiritual one, but it had to be a personal one. And so, but you said that well. It was a search for me. It took some time for me to figure that out. Peace Corps was the beginning of that, but so was business school. But over time, I began to believe my purpose, the purpose I'm choosing, where I feel called, is to bring a different way of operating into the business world, to bring who I am, to bring a personal sense, to bring some sense of spirituality, bring some sense of positive impact into the belly of the beast, into the business world. And so I started that in the corporate world. Then I realized that maybe I can have a better influence as an entrepreneur. And so, yeah, and ZICO was built out of that purpose. That was ultimately to really, I remember from the beginning, our purpose was um, help anybody that wants to live a more active, healthy, natural lifestyle, make it easy and accessible for them.
Well, building Zico into a global brand required convincing people, specifically Americans, to drink something that they had never, most of them had never heard of. And as you admitted, the first time you drank it, yeah, this is a little weird. I don't know what this
Yeah.
is. So, what was the hardest part of creating that category from scratch?
Yeah, that was the hardest part, Jason. I mean, I remember, and I'll bet you now most of your listeners are familiar with coconut water, and a lot of them drink it. But going back to 2004 when we launched, I remember most people didn't know what it was, and they would taste it, and I would get a lot of like, because it's got a low acid profile. Most of what we drink has a very high acidity level, so people aren't just used to it really. And so I can remember, for example, I trained my team when you're at an event um, and somebody has a bad reaction, you grab them by the shoulder and you say, it's an acquired taste. It's not for everyone. And you escort them out of the booth. We also intentionally did a ton of sampling post either runs, bike events, or triathlons. Part of the reason is because it is naturally high in electrolytes. It's great for replenishment. But the other reason, you'll drink, excuse my language, you'll drink your own piss at the end of a triathlon, right? So it's like more likely for people to have a positive response. And that positive response gets reinforced over time. But that was the biggest challenge, is getting up. Well, there were a lot of challenges. One of the biggest ones with consumers was just getting over the taste profile.
So selling to Coca-Cola is a dream exit for most founders. Is the dollar amount that you sold for, is that public or is that
It
still
is probably a little
concealed?
over 200 million.
Well, $200 million. Okay. So when you sold for $200 million to Coca-Cola, what surprised you most about the transition?
Oh,
And
wow.
what did you learn about yourself in that process?
Jason, I love that question. What did I learn about myself? Because I spent a lot of time with entrepreneurs and ask them that exact question. Because you can learn about the world, but ultimately this is an individual learning journey. What I learned about myself was I had bought in. It was amazing, right? It was more money than I expected to make initially. Of course, that 200 million gets split among a number of investors. That wasn't all in my pocket, but I did better than I expected. I had enough money that if I wasn't an idiot, I never needed to work again. Built a beautiful house on the beach, stopped working, traveled, parties, fun, a lot of amazing things. But I think that what I realized about myself is, first of all, I had bought into this myth that if I had the idea, if I worked hard enough, if I made enough money, I would feel successful, and ultimately I would feel free to do whatever I wanted to do whenever I wanted to do it. What I found probably 3, 4 years after selling was I was back in the grind now as an investor, but I'm like meetings up the wazoo, crazy schedule. I'm not taking care of myself. I'm grinding away because sort of unconsciously I'd realized I'm on to the next milestone. I'm on to the next this. Now I need an extra million. Now I need an extra big exit. What's next? What's next? What's next? And I realized I fell into this trap of always later, always more, always some future state that I would feel successful and free. And so that to me was a wake up call like, man, I got to do something different now because I love working. I love business. I do want to make more money. I do want to have more success. But can I do that with freedom as my foundation? And so I, in many ways, rebuilt my life from the bottom up. And that's what I wrote about in this recent book, An Entrepreneur's Guide to Freedom, is like what that takes, because that was the learning for me. If I'm not careful, I'm going to trap myself again in the same damn cycles, you know?
Well, I want to talk about your book, but I have one more question about the acquisition. But this I'm going to talk about the
Yeah.
reacquisition. So when you bought ZICO back in 2020, what is that number public? Is that number
Yeah.
public that you bought it back for?
Yeah. Boy, I don't, well, it's mine to decide if it's public or not. So I'll give it to you. It was less than $5 million.
Say that
Less
again. I
than
didn't hear what you
5 million.
said. That's what I thought you said, but
Yeah.
I thought surely
Yeah.
not. So that's the deal of the century
Yeah.
right there. Let's sell it
Well,
for 200
it's
million,
only
buy it
the
back for 5
it's
million.
only the deal of the century, Jason, is if we can build it back up and monetize it, right?
Well, of course you can. Yeah.
And it's taken more investment than just that, because even with all I know, even with ever I've been through, in beverage is tough. So it's taken more money and more time than we expected. But by next year, Zico should do in revenue, because we started from zero, even though we bought the brand. So effectively we had to start from zero. But by
Right.
next year, we'll do more. We should do more in revenue than at the point when I sold it to Coca-Cola the first time.
Yeah, so it's worth more than it was when you sold it back to Coca-Cola to begin with.
Absolutely.
So Coca-Cola. So for those, this is a little business lesson that you'd probably be able to teach better than me. But the business lesson for those that are out there going, these corporations don't pay their fair share of taxes. Hear me, listen well. They lost $195 million on that deal. That's just on acquisition back and forth,
Absolutely.
not counting what they invested in the middle.
Exactly right.
So when they report a loss of nearly $250 million over that acquisition, there's a reason they didn't pay. Like if you don't make any money, you don't pay any taxes. That's what happens. So anyway, I digress. I just get on my
Great little
tax
point,
hobby
Jason.
horse.
You're absolutely right. They spent $10 million in marketing that we're the beneficiary of now, right?
Sure.
And
Yeah.
here's the thing: they're good people, they're smart people. I don't know that I would be any different if I'd spent my whole career at Coca-Cola, right? I just haven't, and so I think like an entrepreneur.
So I'm looking this up right now, as I've not done this before this moment. I'm just typing in the word Zico into Google, and I get a Brazilian footballer. So that's different. That's a different person. So we need to do Zico coconut water. Coconut. There we go. So let's see yeah. Look at the blue, and you got cardboard, and you got
Yeah,
plastic.
yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that.
We
I've
got
seen
them
it.
all. We
I,
got,
on,
yeah,
you,
we got right here.
there you go. Yeah, full transparency. I'm not a coconut water drinker, not because I don't like it. It just has never made it into my
Oh,
atmosphere. Like it's not. I've not attempted to not drink it. I've not attempted
well,
to drink it,
you're about
but
to
now I'm
come
aware of
arrive
it.
at your house, Jason. And so you get me your address, it's coming to your house. And I love hearing that. I love that. You want to know why I love that? Because it means there's even a bigger opportunity.
Yeah, it's an untapped market because for somebody like me, when I go into a convenience store and pick up something to drink, I'm getting a Coke Zero. That's what I drink. That's what I've got for lunch today. We podcasting all day, so one of my team members ran out and got some Wendy's and brought it back. But coconut water has never even been anything I would have considered.
Yeah,
Not because I didn't want to. It just didn't
not
even.
there. Yeah.
It's you just don't know about it. Now let's talk about power plant partners. So you were early on the plant based movement with Power Plant Partners and Beyond Meat. So what did you see that others missed, and what's your take on where that space is headed right now?
Yeah. So I think we were ahead of the curve in seeing that what many people thought was really niche or fringe had the potential to go mainstream. And so, and I think for us, that was never the whole world's going to be vegan. that was people are looking for alternatives. And really, a number of people are critical, hey, with understandable reason about, well, Beyond Meat's still, processed. It's not perfectly clean. There's some criticism against it. But I would tell you is what we saw is what most Americans are eating. When you look at like a hamburger served in a high school or a college campus, not meat. Right? It is filled with so much garbage. I'm not talking about your great grass-fed burger down the street or one you get at your favorite place. Most of this is not really real food. And so there are a number of plant-based alternatives that were making substitutes. Milk is a prime example, right? 20 years ago, you went to your Starbucks or your local coffee shop, you got milk or milk, right? Now you can get almond milk, soy milk, coconut milk, oat milk, right? We knew that was coming because we saw it early. You could see that trend in certain markets and certain consumers and Whole Foods and certain places around the country that tend to be sort of ahead of the curve in some ways. So we decided to form a firm and invest in companies in that space. And the reality is we had a couple big winners. Beyond Meat was a big one. Thrive Market, which isn't only plant-based, but does plenty of plant-based, was a big winner. We also had some black eyes. We had some companies that didn't do quite so well. But what was interesting is that trend in many ways probably got overhyped, but it absolutely got overcapitalized. All of a sudden, every investment firm on the planet either started looking at or put a team dedicated to go after plant-based investing. And so all of a sudden, valuations got bid up. Companies had tons of money. They started marketing and promoting ahead of the curve of really where consumers were. And so that market got oversaturated and had a pullback, massive pullback. And so we shifted our focus to say, we still will do plant-based investing, but that's not our core thesis. So we changed our name to Ground Force Capital and began to expand to invest in other areas. So we just closed today a beef jerky company called Righteous Felon. Fantastic brand. It's growing fast because we're more focused in health and wellness and sustainability, not only plant-based. And part of that reflects my own learning, my own journey with food, and the science and research we're doing as well that helps us understand that, hey, people make different choices. We're not dogmatic about that. But that sector is still, it's not irrelevant, but it's definitely had its challenges in the last few years.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about your new book, The Entrepreneur's Guide to Freedom. But before we do that, I want to talk about a couple of things. So everybody stand by. We're going to get back to Mark in just a moment. But first, I want to encourage you to go to youtube.com/TheRealJasonDuncan and subscribe. If you're on YouTube watching this, you're watching it on my channel anyway. So just hit that subscribe button. You're going to get every podcast episode plus exclusive videos on building and scaling exitable businesses. I also teach what my book talks about, Exit Without Exiting, that philosophy, and the XOS method, which is Exeter Operating System that we put together for our mastermind members. And we talk about something called the 3 tiers of entrepreneurial evolution. So if you want to subscribe to get that type of content, go to youtube.com/TheRealJasonDuncan. And now a word from today's sponsor, Bank on Yourself. Ready to take control of your business cash flow, create your own private source of funding, and transform the way you build wealth? I want you to imagine for a minute a proven strategy that's designed for entrepreneurs that lets you access capital when you need it without banks. That's awesome. Without gatekeepers, without tedious applications. This approach lets your money grow every single year. It gives you liquidity for investments and expansion, and it can protect your savings from market shocks. You can set your own terms for borrowing and for repayment, and you can maximize what you keep. And you get to keep your business moving forward with confidence. And savvy entrepreneurs all around the country are unlocking freedom with this method, this bank on yourself method. And if you want to learn how you can bank on your own success, then go to therealjasonduncan.com/bank on yourself. And you can book a confidential 15-minute session with a specialist who can answer a few questions, show you how this strategy might fit into your financial goals. It's something that I've been doing since 2019. I wish I discovered it many, many years earlier, but I can't say how wonderful this is. It is wonderful. Take charge of your financial future today. Go to therealjasonduncan.com/bank on yourself. Now back to the show. So Mark, let's talk about your newest book, The Entrepreneur's Guide to Freedom. Why did you write that book with that title?
Yeah. Look, I tend to, back to what I know about myself. I learn I learn my lessons by writing. I've always journaled. I've always written. So in many ways, I started writing this for myself. I really started writing for myself to look back on how did I, despite my success, wind up trapped, and how did I want to build for freedom, optimize for freedom from the beginning. And you used this term before, sort of an operating system. Like how do I build my own operating system? And what I realized as I was going through this sort of rebirthing process myself, I'm still running Ground Force. I'm still working with entrepreneurs. I'm still sitting on boards of directors. And I'm realizing a lot of the things, the tools and skill sets that I'm using and developing are super applicable for others. And I would, give you one little example. This adage, there's no place for emotion in business, right? Good luck with that. That is 18th century thinking in a 21st century world. Modern neuroscience makes it crystal clear. Emotions are just data, right? What do we do with them? There's no such thing as manifesting without alignment to our emotions. So I try to bring some of these things for myself into my world. But I started to bring them with the boards of directors, with CEOs, with founders that I work with. And I realized, my God, everybody's suffering. They may look like they're smooth and perfect on the outside, right? Business looks great. They seem successful. People look at entrepreneurs and think they're the definition of success and freedom. But you and I know underneath, most of them are they're like swans on the water, smooth and perfect on the surface, but underneath they're scrambling like crazy, right? And so I realized they're suffering. And if I can offer even a little bit to help, I feel called to do so. So I decided to turn what I've been using for a number of years right now into this book to see if it can be helpful for others.
Well, in your other book, your first book, I guess, High Hanging Fruit, you talk about reaching for the harder opportunities. So what's an example of some high hanging fruit you almost didn't go after?
Oh boy, great question. High hanging fruit. Look, when I look back on ZICO, I'll share one thing that's a little bit of a twist on that, but I realize I built a really good business. I can see that, but I can also own that as soon as Coca-Cola got interested, and they actually made a small investment early on with us, the game became build to sell. And there's nothing wrong with that. I understand that. That was a rational decision. I made that choice. But it wasn't built to last. And so what I decided to do next time around with ZICO now is make sure it's built to last. Now, we may and likely will exit the business at some point in time, but no matter what, the business is going to be built to last. And I'm not waiting for that success to feel freedom. I'm building the business from a very different state of mind and with a very different set of tools and skills this time around that allow me to both enjoy the ride, get better results with more ease and fun than I ever thought was possible. Because the first time around, it wasn't easy and it wasn't fun. Really, I was grinding. I was anxious. I was nervous. I was stressed. Couldn't wait for the day to exit in many ways. And now I want to approach it in a different way. And I don't think that means compromising building an amazing business.
What's something you used to believe that you don't believe anymore?
Ha 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 ha. I used to believe that if I really that the only way to be successful is to work really, really hard. You got to grind. It's not that I don't think that that's true. I just like to question everything right now. Am I certain? One of the little tricks I use with entrepreneurs is ask yourself, what's the story you're telling yourself? And then ask, are you certain? 100% certain. And what if the opposite were true? So the question I would ask myself is, yeah, I can see the belief I have that the only way to be successful is to grind harder, faster, longer. And I ask myself, am I certain? Am I 100% certain that that's true? And of course, I'm not. So how could it be possible that the opposite is true? How could it be possible that the best way to get success is to approach it with a little bit more ease, a little bit more fun, a little bit more love? Is that even possible? Just that possibility is liberating, because now I'm not trapped by this assumption that I have to grind.
So the name of this show is The Root of All Success. So let's talk about success. Mark, what do you believe has been the one key that has unlocked success for you more than anything else?
Don't believe everything I think. Question everything, even my own thinking, my own beliefs. Question them with love and curiosity. And this is a difference. I used to do that with criticism. How could you think that? Why did you think that? Why did you do that? Now I get curious. Interesting. Why did I think that? Oh, I can see why. Why did I believe that? Oh, yeah, I can see why. Am I certain it's true? I think that questioning and curiosity to me is the secret.
How do you personally define the word success?
The ability to be in any situation and be in choice. That I know I have the freedom and the ability to choose to be in this meeting, Jason, or leave, to have my next meeting or not, to make this decision, make that decision. That to me is success.
Based on that definition, do you consider yourself successful?
Most days, most of the time, yes. But most importantly, I now have the tools and skills to be able to catch myself when I'm feeling unsuccessful, which I call trapped, and I can get myself back to presence, back to freedom, and I feel great. I feel successful.
All right, put your consulting hat on or coaching hat on for a second. What's your best piece of advice for entrepreneurs?
Get to really know, accept, and love yourself, because there's nobody else that's coming to save you, and you're the person you're going to spend the most time with in the rest of your life. So get used to it.
All right. As we close this conversation today, Mark, I've got 3 rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Well, I think so.
All right. Best lesson that you took from your Peace Corps days?
I don't need more than $187 a month to be happy.
That depends on your address, I suppose.
Yeah, well, that's for sure. Costa Rica was a different place back then.
All right. What one founder you've invested in who inspires you the most?
Might be Nick Green, founder and CEO of Thrive Market. It's built a close to $1 billion business with just a level of integrity and open-heartedness that's impressive.
Final question. If you could go back and give your 30-year-old Mark one piece of advice, what would it be?
Relax. Trust. The universe is all working for you.
I love it. Well, Mark, thank you so much for being on the show. How can people get in touch if they want to engage with what you're doing?
I'm in LinkedIn is good for me, Instagram, and markrampolla.co is a website where I'm kind of doing some of this work around the book and engaging with entrepreneurs. That's the best way.
All right. Mark Rampolla. That's spelled RAMPOLLA.co, markrampolla.co. So go check that out. And if you're interested in ZICO, it's ZICO.com. And I might be getting a case of those in my house. I could check out this coconut water
Give me
thing,
your
see what
jet
it's all
chaser.
about.
It's on the house.
Hey, listen, I love coconuts. So how bad can coconut water be, right? I mean, I like
We've
it.
got a
I like
new one
coconut.
for you that's off the charts. And I'm going to get to you.
All right. That's very kind of you. But thank you for being on the show. Congrats on all your success. And may the next company that you sell, you buy back at, what is that? I don't even know what that percentage is.
2%.
May you be able to do it again and continue to repeat it. Congratulations,
Welcome.
Mark. Thanks for being here.
Jason, take care.
Well, there you have it. Another successful entrepreneur about his story. What a story. I mean, selling a company for $200 million and then buying it back for only $5 million. And now it being worth just a short time more than it was back when he sold it the first time. That's crazy. This is an entrepreneur's dream, but this is what it's about. Like, there are opportunities out there everywhere around us. And you know what? As I tell people a lot, it's not about the idea. It's not about the thing you can come up with. It's about the thing that you can execute. So we've all got good ideas, but if you ain't doing it, if you're not executing, it doesn't really matter. And so he had an idea of coconut water. I'm working on the Peace Corps down in Costa Rica, sipping on this coconut water. He's like, wait, maybe we could do that. Okay, that's an idea. Any idiot could have that idea, but he did it. He went out and did it and turned it into $200 million, and it's probably going to turn it into $1 billion. So this is your encouragement. Go and do. So thanks for listening to the show. Tune in again next time when I talk with yet another very successful entrepreneur about his or her journey to success. Until then, as always, I am your host, The Real Jason Duncan, and Jesus is King.
Attention business owners. Attention business owners. Feeling burnout from running your business? Uncertain if you're nearing burnout? Take our free 10-question business burnout test at businessburnouttest.com to discover where you stand. With just 10 quick questions, you'll learn how to immediately begin making changes to regain freedom and success. Cut your daily operations time in half. Improve your quality of life and prepare your business for your future exit without losing revenue or profit. Visit businessburnouttest.com now and take the test. Thank you for listening to another edition of The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, visit therootofallsuccess.com to access the show notes and other helpful resources. Follow Jason on social media at The Real Jason Duncan. See you again next time here on The Root of All Success.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.